When I was talking about young kids before, I think we forget that we didn't just become the learners that we are, that we through the process that I was describing before, the way you got good at passing the tests, getting right, started with pointless activity, creative activity.
Yeah.
And that's how we all learn to follow the rules, is by playing, imitating, trying, creating. And I'm not even talking about this as always a positive activity. Many of us got the message relatively early on, only do the ones you're good at. Don't do those things, that's too messy, that's too... But for everybody, I really do believe this, there was an initial process that involved pointlessness. And so I think we lose that and we start separating learning into the kinds of things that bear no relationship to playfulness and pointlessness, and the kinds of things that are there. And we don't, even just in a very instrumental way, we don't make use of the playfulness, even when we want to be learning something pointed. And certainly, we don't think of ourselves as capable of both. In your case, I think what you're saying is, I want to learn the emotionals, this kind of thing, using the tools I use to learn algebra. I'm just saying they're not as separate as you think. So you didn't just learn algebra by following those rules. You went through a many year process of playing with numbers and all sorts of things and being in the world of that led you to be able to learn algebra. It wasn't like you dropped on the earth able to learn algebra. So I think that would be true now. If you don't want to do algebra, but you want to do hopscotch, you'd have to keep going through a process of creating the environment where you could possibly learn hopscotch.
I think I have a more basic deficiency because I don't think I learned, you know, I didn't pass the test. In medical school, I was not good at passing this. Actually, I've been learning more that I'm teaching, which I have more, and I recognize the thing that people were saying, that you were saying, the students, there is a subjective component to learning what we teach in medicine, and I think when we include that, the students do learn. It's a different experience, it's a whole different, there's a more intimate kind of learning, or whatever you want to call it, a relationship to what they're going to be doing, and I think that is important, and we do these sessions, and we do use performance. They perform as doctors on each other, they examine each other when I'm working on teaching physical diagnosis, but I think I don't know if I got the beginning or had the experience of playing and doing the process, and then off of that learning. I think I'm having that more now than I did, but that's just my own.
Because I know you, and I think it's true that play was sucked out of your childhood, you know, earlier than maybe some others, and that was true for me as well. And I think that, I think the extent to which you say, well, you know, even by putting yourself apart a little bit right now, it's making it a little hard for you to play with what Carrie is saying, if I can say that to you. I know Jesse well, you know, so I can, you know. So
yeah.
Well, partly I think, and this is to the whole group, that I think we equally limit what we mean by play as what we mean by learning, right? So I think that I'm not talking about just I'm not saying, oh, just play an improv game. I'm saying the creative I was thinking about the difference between the poems and the presentations and the different experience of creating them.
yeah.
And one of the things I loved was they weren't that different. When in walking around, you were all engaged in a very similar activity. And yet in the world, those things would have been thought of as completely different activities. That you can't make use of the creativity you need to write a poem in creating a presentation, and you can't make use of the knowledge you have in doing a presentation in creating a poem. I mean, I'm sure poets would disagree with me about that part, but I thought what was fascinating was you guys didn't. I was expecting more of a difference in those two activities, and there's something about that I think is tied to what I'm saying about, do we have that all of these things are humanly created activities. All of them or things we can decide to do one way or another, or different modes of it. But we have them in very, very concrete boxes. So I had the experience a few weeks ago of trying to write something, and I was completely stuck. Just trying to write a paper on the relationship between development and democracy. I don't know why I was stuck. And I got a lot of help. Very brilliant people had told me things I might be able to say, and I couldn't do it. And I decided to try writing a poem. When I woke up in the morning, I was going to write a poem, and then just go on from there. Now, again, this is not a do this at home and your life will be solved, although I did have a little bit of the experience. I woke up and I was like, as nervous. I wake up very nervous when I have to write. Like I wake up and I'm immediately anxious. I was like, okay, but you don't have to be anxious because you're going to write a poem. You're not going to do these other things. So I got up and I wrote a poem, 2 poems. And ultimately, one of them made its way into the paper. But what I discovered was I had to play, the play is not, it's not instead of, it's not other than, it's literally saying, oh, I remember I'm the person doing this activity. I'm the creator of this activity. And what did I need to do? So it was, in some ways, I think that's what I'm saying about the relationship a little bit between play and learning, is that it's reconnecting to, they're not as different as we've been led to believe.
That's helping me to see something new about your question earlier, because I thought that what you were saying is that you want to play more, but the students don't see that as real learning, and the teachers don't see it as real learning. So, in a way, we're not so much, so then we did these things together, and you talked before about the process, or you were talking about process. So maybe what you're saying is that, and what we just experienced is that it's still process going on in the classroom. So the thing is, like, what I would find very helpful about this, I feel like now I could learn book kinds of things back from doing what we just did. Like, if I keep that process going, I think that would help me a lot to learn the things I find harder to learn. So if you see the process continuing, even if they're doing what you call maybe more rote kinds of things, there's still like a creative process going on.
Yeah.
But it might not look like play, or it might not.
Well, I think we've been taught, and I actually think this has big implications for the human species, that once something's been established as a script, it's no longer play. Now it's what you do, and that has serious implications for much of life. Is that kind of activity? We're deadening ourselves if we say we can only play with the things that are over here that haven't yet been scripted. Because as a species, we've scripted most things. So if we make that decision that this is not play and this is play, I think we're somewhat doomed. And certainly I think individuals are doomed who see themselves as bad learners because they bought into that script is the script it is, and I'm either good at it or not good at it, and I don't get to play with it. I don't get to be creative with it. I don't get to be emotional about it. I just have to accept I'm bad at this and good at that. And so I think it has serious implications for what we're able to do, given how scripted the species is. The route that we've gone down is pretty damn scripted. From how you get on the subway in the morning, to how you do being married, to how you do learning a new job. So I agree. I don't think it means throwing out the scripts. I think it means acknowledging and teaching the students, in that case, this is a script you learned. This is how you learn to learn, and it's fine. We can keep using it. Guess what? There are other ways. And maybe even ways nobody's invented